You can't become the person you're meant to be while dragging around the version of you that's already expired. That old identity, built from fear, mistakes, and survival, isn't strong enough to carry your future. And yet most people never grow because they never let go. They stay loyal to who they were instead of committed to who they could become. If you're tired of repeating the same cycles, this is your moment to release the past, not fix it. To evolve, not explain. Let go of the old you, or lose the life the new you could have built. You're not stuck. You're just carrying too much, too many opinions, too many expectations, too many memories of who you used to be. And every time you try to rise, something pulls you back down. But it's not the world. It's the outdated version of you that you're still dragging around. The overthinker, the people pleaser, the version built in survival, not in strength. You've outgrown them, but you haven't let them go. So now you're heavy with your own history. And it's slowing everything down. You can feel it, can't you? You take 2 steps forward, but some part of you still hesitates, still questions, still waits for permission from the past. But growth doesn't ask your past self if it's okay to evolve. It just moves. And if you're serious about stepping into something greater, you can't keep asking for permission from a version of you that was built for survival, not expansion. Let me say it plain. You don't need who you used to be anymore. That version was important. They got you here. They did what they could with what they had, but their job is done. It's time to say thank you and goodbye, because the longer you hold on, the more you betray who you're trying to become. You can't carry self-doubt and walk in purpose. You can't stay small and expect a big life. Every layer you've added to protect yourself, you now have to peel away to free yourself. The voice that told you not to try, the habits that kept you hidden, the fear that convinced you not yet. They were coping tools once, but now they're just anchors. And if you don't release them, you'll keep confusing heaviness for failure when really it's just too much weight. You don't need a better plan. You need to drop what no longer belongs. Start here. Ask yourself, what am I carrying that no longer serves me? Then be honest, be ruthless, be free, because your future isn't waiting on a better you. It's waiting on a lighter one. You say you want to heal. You say you're done with the pain, but you keep reliving the pattern that caused it, and you wonder why nothing changes. Healing doesn't come from time alone. It comes from choice, from change, from the decision to stop rehearsing the same struggle and start living a different story. But most people, they keep pressing play on the same scene because it's familiar, because it feels safe, because it's easier to repeat what you know than to become someone you've never been. But let me ask you something. How can you grow if you're still living inside the same cycle? You can't heal what you won't interrupt. You can't rise while staying loyal to what's breaking you. You keep returning to the same beliefs, the same relationships, the same version of yourself, thinking maybe this time it'll feel different. But it won't. Not until you stop the cycle. See, your past will gladly become your future if you don't consciously disrupt it. And no, that doesn't mean you need to hate where you came from. It means you stop pretending that it still fits. It means you stop decorating the prison and start walking out of it. Because healing isn't passive. It's not a waiting game. It's not something that happens when life finally gets easier. It's an act of defiance. It's you saying, this ends with me. This pattern dies here. This version of me doesn't get to run the show anymore. And that's not easy. It's painful. Because when you stop repeating the cycle, you face the emptiness it was covering. The silence, the discomfort, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. But that space is sacred. That's where the healing lives. Not in running from your past, but in choosing not to repeat it. You want peace? Then stop going back to what cost you it. Stop picking the same pain and calling it destiny. It's not your destiny, it's just your pattern. And patterns can be broken if you're brave enough to stop dancing with them. So today ask yourself, what am I still repeating that's no longer worth reliving? Because healing doesn't ask you to fix the old story. It just asks you to stop reading it. Close the book. Write something new, and let the next page belong to the version of you that finally decided to stop looping and start living. You keep grieving the version of you that made everyone comfortable, the one who smiled when they wanted to scream, the one who stayed small so nobody would feel threatened. You mourn that person because they were liked, because they were safe, because they never made waves, but they also never grew. And here's the truth. You can't become powerful while staying loyal to who you were when you were scared. That old version of you, the one who always said yes, the one who kept their dreams quiet, the one who made themselves smaller so others could feel bigger, they were a survival story, not a success story. They served a purpose. They got you through the storm. They helped you avoid conflict, protect your heart, stay under the radar. But don't confuse that for growth. And don't confuse letting them go with betrayal. You are not betraying your past self by evolving. You're honoring them by becoming everything they were too afraid to be. Stop mourning the version of you that played small just to fit in. You don't belong where you were accepted for shrinking. You belong where you're celebrated for expanding. Yes, some people liked that older you more, but they liked them because they could predict them, because they didn't challenge anything, because they were easy to manage. Growth makes people uncomfortable. So will you. But that's not your burden to carry anymore. You can't keep dimming your light to maintain relationships you've already outgrown. You're allowed to evolve without guilt, without apology, without checking to see if everyone's still okay with your growth. Because growth isn't a group decision. Let them miss the version of you that made them feel safe, while you become the version that makes you feel free. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them fall away. That's what happens when you stop mourning and start moving. You don't have to kill off the old you with anger. You don't have to burn them down. You just have to walk forward and let the wind of your future erase their footprints. Because your small self doesn't need a funeral. They need a thank you, and then they need to be left behind. So stop grieving the mask. You never needed it. Start becoming the version of you who no longer wears one. Comfort is a liar. It tells you you're safe, but really, you're stuck. It whispers that staying where you are is smarter than risking who you could be. And if you're not careful, you'll start confusing familiar with right. But let me be clear. What feels safe now might be silently killing your future. That job you hate but won't leave. That routine that numbs you. That group of friends who laugh at your ideas because they never had the courage to chase their own. It all feels familiar. And familiarity makes us feel in control. But growth doesn't happen in control. It happens in chaos, in the unknown, in the uncomfortable. And the longer you worship the familiar, the more you delay your future. Some people stay in the same life not because it's working, but because it's predictable. They'd rather feel in control of a slow death than lose control on the way to a better life. But that's not you, not anymore. If you want to grow, you have to let go of what feels normal and step into what feels necessary. You have to look at what's good enough and admit it's not even close to what you want. You have to stop settling just because settling has become a habit. Familiarity is not your friend. It's your leash. And until you unhook yourself, you'll keep pacing the same small circle and calling it progress. You weren't built to survive your past. You were built to outgrow it. So start noticing the ways you cling to the old just because the new feels strange. That's not your intuition speaking. That's your fear, dressed in a whisper. And fear is persuasive. It'll dress up in logic. It'll sound responsible. It'll call itself realistic. But the only thing real about it is the way it steals time from the life you could be living. You don't escape stagnation by thinking your way out. You escape it by moving into something unfamiliar, even if it scares you, especially if it scares you. So ask yourself today, what have I mistaken for safety that's actually just stagnation? And then dare to walk away from it. Because if you don't, you'll keep waking up in a life that feels almost okay, but quietly suffocating. And that is the slowest death of all. Some beliefs were useful once. They helped you stay safe, avoid pain, make sense of the world when it felt too big to handle. But they've expired. And now you're dragging around thoughts that used to protect you, but now only prevent you. You believe success has to be hard, that money is scarce, that people like you don't get ahead, that you're too late, too broken, too ordinary. But none of those are facts. They're just beliefs. And beliefs can be replaced. The problem is you've repeated them so many times, they've become your identity. Now, they don't just shape your thoughts, they shape your future. Because what you believe becomes what you allow, and what you allow becomes what you live. So if you're still walking around with the mindset you inherited at age 14, no wonder your progress keeps hitting the same wall. Expired beliefs are like software updates you never installed. You're trying to run a powerful life on an outdated operating system. You believe relationships should be earned through self-sacrifice. You believe ambition is selfish. You believe your past defines your potential. And as long as those thoughts stay unchallenged, you'll keep sabotaging anything that contradicts them. That's why good things feel scary. Why new opportunities feel fake. Why success feels suspicious. Because it doesn't align with your internal script. You don't need more information. You need permission to delete what no longer serves you. Permission to say, that belief helped me survive back then, but it's not helping me grow now. You were taught to be realistic, to aim low, to not expect too much, to be grateful for crumbs. But that lesson doesn't serve you anymore. It's expired. And if you keep eating expired food, you get sick. Same goes for expired beliefs. They poison your potential. You've outgrown them. But now you have to outact them. Start by noticing the story behind your hesitation. Is it really your truth, or just a thought you never questioned? Challenge every belief that starts with I always, or I never, or people like me. Because those aren't truths, they're echoes. And the echo is not the voice of your future. It's the voice of your old self, trying to stay relevant. Let it fade. You're not here to protect your beliefs. You're here to test them. And if they fail the test of growth, let them go. Because the cost of carrying expired beliefs is living a future you never wanted. You can't have transformation without disruption. You can't become new while clinging to the old. But that's where most people get stuck. They want the change without the cost. They want growth, but they don't want to give anything up for it. They want a new life while keeping the identity that fits their old one. And it doesn't work that way. You can't evolve and stay the same. Every level you're trying to reach requires a part of you to be left behind. Not because you're wrong, but because you're ready. Ready to trade comfort for capacity. Ready to stop being liked and start being aligned. Ready to shed the masks, drop the excuses, and let go of everything that feels safe, but secretly keeps you small. It's easy to forget. Growth is subtraction before it becomes addition. You lose ease, you lose certainty, you lose habits, people, sometimes even parts of your identity. But what you gain makes the loss worth it. You gain truth, you gain clarity, you gain momentum. The real you doesn't live inside the version that never risks, never speaks up, never steps out. The real you is waiting on the other side of discomfort. You want to evolve? Good. Then understand what that means. It means sacrifice, not in a painful way, but in a powerful one. It means saying, I no longer need this part of me. I don't need this coping mechanism. I don't need this approval. I don't need to be who I used to be just to feel like I belong. And once you say that, once you let go, you unlock everything that was meant for the next version of you. But you can't collect that future while wearing the mask of your past. So ask yourself today, what version of me am I still performing just to avoid the discomfort of change? Because until you break the pattern, you'll keep waking up in a life that doesn't feel like yours. Don't wait for permission to evolve. Don't wait for validation. Don't wait for life to push you. Push yourself. Step into the unfamiliar and accept this truth. You cannot evolve and stay the same. One of those has to go. You keep wondering why your life still feels small, why your results never rise, why you keep hitting the same invisible ceiling. And the answer's simple. You haven't outgrown the identity that built the ceiling. You're still living like the person who is afraid to be seen, still thinking like the version who only knew how to survive, still moving like someone who doesn't believe they're allowed to win. But if your identity is built on fear, you'll keep making fear-based choices. And those choices, they never lead anywhere new. You can't build a powerful life from the blueprint of a powerless self. At some point, you have to cut ties with the image you've been protecting. The one that says, I'm not good enough. I'll always struggle. I'm just this way. No, you're not just this way. You've just rehearsed it long enough to confuse habit with identity. But who you've been is not who you have to be. You can change, you can decide, you can let go, but only if you're willing to stop being loyal to the version of you that keeps you safe by keeping you small. That identity served a purpose. It gave you something to cling to when everything felt uncertain. But now it's just a disguise, and it's suffocating your future. See, growth doesn't just require action. It requires disassociation. You have to stop answering to the name you gave yourself back when you didn't know better. You have to stop defending the limitations you were taught to wear like armor. Because that armor, it's heavy. And it's not protecting you anymore. It's blocking you. Let it go. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to warn anyone. You don't need to apologize for leaving behind an identity that no longer fits the life you're building. Say goodbye to the overthinker, to the avoider, to the version that made fear look like strategy. You don't owe them anything. They were temporary. You're permanent. And the sooner you cut ties, the sooner you get access to the version of you who acts with power, moves with clarity, and doesn't keep shrinking just to feel safe. So ask yourself now, what parts of my identity am I still protecting that no longer reflect my potential? Then drop them. Let them fall like dead leaves from a tree that's ready to grow again. Because who you used to be was never the problem. Staying them too long is. Not everything that protected you is meant to go with you. Some of it was only meant to keep you safe for a season, not shape you for a lifetime. But that's what happens, isn't it? You build walls when you're hurting. You avoid risk when you're scared. You become quiet, agreeable, invisible. Not because it's who you are, but because it's what got you through. And it worked. It kept the peace. It numbed the fear. It helped you survive. But now those same habits are keeping you from becoming who you're meant to be. What once protected you is now limiting you. And that's the part most people never question. They confuse safety with identity. They say, I've always been like this. I'm just not the type to speak up. I don't like taking risks. But the truth is, they're not living their nature. They're living their defense mechanism. There's nothing wrong with being cautious, being quiet, being careful. But there is something wrong with living your whole life in protection mode. Because protection was meant to get you through the storm, not become your personality. At some point, you have to stop worshiping what saved you and start releasing it. You have to thank it for what it did, and then let it go so something new can grow in its place. Because if you don't, you'll keep using old survival patterns to build a future they're not designed for. You'll keep shrinking when you should be stepping in. You'll keep hiding when you should be speaking. You'll keep delaying when you should be deciding. The strongest people you know, they didn't get there by staying protected. They got there by breaking through, by trading comfort for courage, by releasing what was once useful so they could become something more. That's your work now. Let go of the coping strategy that helped you avoid pain, but also cost you possibility. Let go of the script you wrote in fear and never edited in faith. Let go of the behaviors that make everyone else comfortable but make you miserable. Because safety is not your highest goal. Freedom is. And freedom only comes when you release what no longer serves the version of you you're trying to build. This is the moment. Breathe. Unclench. Let go. Because nothing new can grow while you're still gripping what kept you safe yesterday. Letting go doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like loss, like stepping into a room that used to be full and finding it quiet, like taking off a jacket you've worn for years, even though it's 3 sizes too small. You feel exposed, vulnerable, almost like you've made a mistake. Because the mind doesn't recognize growth as comfort. It recognizes it as danger. It panics when you remove the patterns, the people, the routines that once kept you safe. And so at first, letting go feels like betrayal. It feels like abandonment. It feels like quitting. But it's not. It's graduating. You're not giving up. You're leveling up. You're releasing the things you can't carry into your future if you plan to survive there. But here's what no one tells you. Between the moment you let go and the moment you grow, there is a gap, a silence, an emptiness, a space where the old no longer fits, but the new hasn't fully arrived yet. That space is what breaks most people, because they mistake the silence for failure, the emptiness for regret, the loneliness for wrongness, and they run back to the old not because they want it, but because it feels familiar. Don't do that. Stay in the gap, feel the quiet, let it hurt, because on the other side of that ache is peace you've never known. Freedom doesn't shout. It doesn't come with applause. It shows up in your spirit like a whisper, like breath returning. Suddenly your shoulders drop, your thoughts quiet down, and you realize this is what it feels like to no longer be at war with yourself. That's what letting go creates, not just room in your schedule, but space in your soul. And yes, at first it may look like you've lost something, but in truth, you've released what was never meant to stay. That person you couldn't please, that version of you that needed their approval, that story you kept repeating just so it wouldn't feel unfinished, let it all go. Loss is not the enemy. Clinging is. Because when you hold on to what's already gone, you block what's trying to arrive. So trust the process. Grieve if you must. Feel everything. But don't go back. Don't refill what life is trying to empty. Letting go will feel like losing right up until the moment you realize how much lighter you are. And when that moment comes, you'll laugh. Because freedom was waiting the whole time. You just had to make space for it. You want to let go. You want to grow. But something in you keeps hesitating. And here's why. You haven't made peace with the person who got you here. That old version of you, the one who made the wrong calls, stayed too long, played too small, believed the lies, settled for less. They're still holding space in your heart. You look back and judge them. You replay their mistakes. You call them weak, blind, broken. But here's the truth. They weren't weak. They were just doing their best. With the tools they had, with the fears they carried, with the experience they lacked. They were surviving, and they kept you alive. And for that, you owe them something greater than shame. You owe them compassion, because you cannot fully release the past while hating the version of you who lived it. You can't hate yourself into evolution. You can't shame yourself into wholeness, and you don't need to. You just need to forgive, not to forget, but to free. Forgive yourself for the time you lost, for the things you accepted, for the goals you ignored, for the dreams you buried. Forgive the you who didn't speak up, who stayed small, who didn't know how to ask for more. They were part of the path, not a detour, a step. And no step is wasted if it brought you here. This is the turning point. When you stop dragging your past self behind you like a mistake and start honoring them like a stepping stone. Because the next level of your life doesn't require a stronger you. It requires a softer one. One who knows that healing isn't powerlessness, it's progress. So say this, quietly or loud. I forgive you. You got me here, and I won't punish you for not knowing what I now understand. Say it until it feels real. Because once you make peace with who you were, you can fully become who you're meant to be. Not in rebellion against your past, but in gratitude for the way it shaped you. The old you was never the enemy. They were the bridge. You're the arrival. And the minute you stop trying to erase them, you'll finally be free to move forward without them. If you don't define who you are, the world will do it for you. And it won't be accurate. It won't be kind. And it sure won't be built for your future. People will define you by your past, by your worst moment, by your hesitation, by the version of you they felt most comfortable around. And if you're not careful, you'll agree with them. You'll wear their story like a second skin. You'll shrink to stay consistent with their memory of you. But listen, you're not who they remember. You're not who you used to be. You're who you decide to be starting right now. That's the beauty of it all. You don't find identity. You choose it. You build it. And yes, sometimes you burn the old one to make room for what's next. The world told you to be realistic, to play small, to keep quiet, to be nice, to be careful. And maybe for a while you believed them. But today is your interruption. You don't owe the world consistency. You owe it authenticity. You don't owe anyone the older version of yourself just because it made them comfortable. You're allowed to change, to rewrite the rules, to reintroduce yourself as someone new. And you don't have to wait until it's polished, proven, or perfect. You just have to begin. Because if you don't make the decision to redefine yourself, you'll keep getting cast in the same role you've long outgrown. And nothing is more painful than watching yourself live a script you didn't even write. So ask yourself now, if no one knew who I was, who would I be? Not the version built from survival, not the one shaped by silence or shame or smallness, but the one that scares you a little, the one that stretches you, the one that excites your future. Start answering to that name. Start acting from that identity. Start building a life that reflects who you're becoming, not who you've been. Let people misunderstand. Let them talk. Let them cling to the past. Because every time you choose to redefine yourself, you reclaim power. And when the world comes knocking with its old labels, you can smile and say, that's not me anymore. You keep trying to take your future and hand it to your past self, hoping they'll know what to do with it. But they won't. They can't. Because your old self was built to survive that season, not lead the next one. That version of you was made to avoid risk, to protect your feelings, to keep the peace, to fit into places that didn't fit you. And now you're asking that same version to step into purpose, to lead with courage, to hold the weight of a dream they were never meant to carry. Of course it feels overwhelming. Of course you feel resistance. Of course it doesn't make sense. You're giving a mansion to someone who was trained to live in a cage. They don't know what to do with freedom, with wealth, with love that doesn't require self-abandonment, with rooms where you're allowed to speak loudly and take up space. And unless you evolve, unless you upgrade the identity, you'll keep sabotaging the reality. You'll make decisions from an outdated mindset and call it intuition. You'll shrink from opportunity and call it humility. You'll stay in the same cycle and call it stability. But none of that is truth. It's just comfort in disguise. Here's what most people never realize. Your old self isn't wrong. They're just done. They were the scaffolding. Now it's time to build the real structure. And that starts with this understanding. Every new level requires a new leader inside you, a more courageous thinker, a more disciplined doer, a more honest voice. Because your future won't accept a weaker version of you. It just won't. That doesn't mean you weren't strong. It means you're being called to more strength now, more clarity, more presence, more accountability. You can't tiptoe into this. You have to step in. And the first step, retire the old self. Let them rest. They serve their time. Now it's your turn to lead with the version of you that can carry the weight of what's next. No more asking your past for advice on your future. No more filtering decisions through outdated fear. No more playing down your calling just to make it digestible for the you who used to be scared. You've come too far for that, so say it out loud. I am not that person anymore. I am not meant to stay who I was, and I trust myself to become who I need to be. Say it until it feels like truth. Then act like it's already done. Because your future's waiting, and your old self isn't invited. You keep asking, who am I supposed to become? But maybe the better question is, what version of me do I need to leave behind first? Because becoming isn't just about what you add. It's about what you're willing to release. And here's the truth most avoid. You don't meet the real you until the old you finally lets go. Not the mask, not the role, not the version of you who kept people happy, but stayed secretly miserable. The real you is quiet at first, hidden, waiting, not because they're weak, but because they've never had enough space to speak. The old you kept filling the room, kept making the choices, kept repeating the same sentences, same relationships, same beliefs. But now it's time to clear the stage. Because when the old you exits, something shifts. Your decisions become sharper. Your energy becomes lighter. Your direction becomes obvious. Not because you discovered some hidden secret, but because you finally stopped letting fear drive. See, the real you doesn't shout. They don't need to. They move in truth, not performance. They lead with peace, not pressure. But you only meet them when you're ready to stop defending the identity you built to survive. That version of you served a purpose, but now it's in the way. So stop rehearsing their lines. Stop living their patterns. Stop dragging them into rooms they were never meant to enter. You want to evolve? Then let the old you die quietly, with gratitude, not in rage, not in shame, but in honor. Because the you that's coming, they don't need protection. They need purpose. They don't need to be understood. They need to be activated. And that happens the moment you say, no more pretending, no more performing, no more holding on to who I was just because it's all I've known. Let that version fall away. Let them rest. And as they fade, watch the real you rise. Not a better you, a truer you. One who doesn't play small to stay safe. One who doesn't ask for permission to be powerful. One who builds without apology, loves without fear, and walks forward without turning around. Because the real you, they're not coming. They've been here, quietly waiting for you to stop being who you were so you can finally become who you really are. So now I'll ask you, what part of you are you finally ready to leave behind? Not out of anger, but out of growth. Drop it in the comments. Make it real. And if this message moved you, subscribe. This is your next step, not to be someone new, but to remember who you were before the world told you to forget.